Hello and welcome everyone to yet another wonderful day here. The Sunday, the day where you have a chance to get ahead of everybody else who's relaxing and not working today. It's a great world. We have the freedoms to choose what we want to do with our time, and some of us want to get ahead. And so that's what we're going to do. But hey, if you don't know who I am, my name is Sam Stevenson. I have been obsessing with construction for about the past 5 years of my life. And I'm basically here to give you the inside scoop on how I'm going to be building one of the best design firms that could possibly exist here, at least for now, in the United States of America. And yeah, my background's in structural engineering and framing. I'm here to basically educate you guys on how I'm going to leverage those skills and the tools that I've got to generate a whole bunch of economic energy so that we can make money. That is what we're here to do. And of course, make the world a better place. In our world, that's how we happen to reward people who make lots of value, is they get lots of money. There are some people out there who believe you should get value and you should get money for not producing value, but that's not how we do things here. So we're going to produce the value. That's what we're up to. So yeah, by the end of the stream, guys, you're going to know some of the mistakes and lessons I've been learning over this last week, what the strategy is for me moving forward, things I've learned, what I'm actually going to be doing in the next week. That way you are totally up to date. There's no secrets, no surprises here. And remember, if we don't do anything, we don't get anywhere. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to shout them out in the chat. Good to have you guys on here. Quick chat shout out right now. We got Centurion54X in the chat. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. Mr. Centurion is a hard-charging entrepreneurial farmer in the great state of Oregon somewhere. He is just like taking over the world. Fairly young for owning a business, as far as I recall, and he's just going after it. So good to see you here in the chat, Mr. Centurion. And we got the one and only Green Observer. Hello, Mr. Green Observer. The Green Observer was one of the excellent participants of the IRL meetup, one of the first IRL meetups here at whatever you want to call this company, Rapid Designs, Bungalows for Bachelors. Who knows? Who cares what the name is, right? He came and hung out. He learned a whole bunch about construction and had a great time. And you guys should do the same, because that is what we are here to do. So let's get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the idea of designer versus draftsman. So when I was on the phone recently with someone, a wise businessman, and he's been in the engineering field for a little bit of time, and he told me, I had mentioned on my calls, I was describing myself as a draftsman. Now, for those that don't know, a draftsman in the engineering or drawing or design world is usually the guy at the bottom. He's the guy who clicks buttons and makes lines on the computer, and he does what all the other smart people tell him to do. Now, there can be great draftsmen who are very good at the tools, who draw very quickly, and who know lots of things, right? And they start to move up in the ranks into what you would call a designer or something like that. Typically, you'd have like draftsman, designer, engineer, project manager. Like as you go up, that's kind of how you would approach things. But because I was referring to myself as a draftsman on all my cold calls, he recommended I instead try using a different word, because if I use the word draftsman, it might make me sound not as educated or whatever, sound like, oh, he just draws lines kind of a thing. And at first I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I started doing that. And immediately in my Houston cold calls, one of the first things I found was that I was confusing a lot of people, because I would now use the word designer, right? Which is, okay, I'm a designer, like whatever you call them, like they're just labels, people. And I call myself a designer. And what was happening was people were getting confused between what I do and what an interior designer does. And so I'd say the word designer and they'd be like, oh, so like you're an interior designer? I'm like, no, I'm a building designer. Like I draw the architectural set of plans that define the structure. Like, I'm not here to tell you how to make pretty millwork. I'm not here to tell you how to make a nice stairway. I'm not here to tell you how to make beautiful cabinetry. I'm here so that you can get a set of plans so you can build something. That's my job. That's what I'm the best at. And so I'd have to have these conversations over and over. And so I decided, I was like, okay, it is actually more confusing to use the word designer. So I'm going to switch back to saying the word draftsman, and everybody kind of gets it. And here's the other thing. I don't particularly care about calling myself a draftsman because I'm particularly proud. Like, I understand that I know way more than what a draftsman would know because of my engineering background and all this stuff. And I have no problem being called a draftsman because honestly, the way I'm building this business is it is just drafting. Like there is additional value that's given and additional like brain power behind, oh, we are just drawing lines. But I'll be honest, a majority of the work that I'm trying to accomplish here is I want to be the best value and fastest line drawer there could possibly be. Right? That's partly what I'm doing here. And so it's like, yeah, we're draftsmen. That's what we do. You know, you give us a set of plans that you want to change and you want to make these changes. We're going to do it faster and better than everybody else. And when I say better, I mean like no mistakes, no weird stuff drawn in that's going to make framers like, huh, what are you doing here? Like, this doesn't make sense. Now it's complicated. Like, it's just, we're going to avoid weird stuff. Right. And communication's a big thing in this industry, right? So many people just, they start something or they build something and you send them an email because you have a question or you need to move a window a foot or something like that. And you need plans to reflect that. And you'll send it over and then you'll wait 2 weeks and get a response or something. It's like, no. This kind of stuff needs to be faster than that. So that's why I got this beautiful lightning bolt behind me, is because we do things fast. We're rapid here at Rapid Designs. So that is my thoughts on the designer versus draftsman. I will use the draftsman lingo moving forward because I just think it's more correct. And I don't want to be confusing people. That's one more question that I have to answer on every single cold call, which is not, I'm not trying to make those longer, trying to make them more valuable. So that's first one. The next one is that one of the battles that's going to be fought when I do this process is overcoming code concerns by not being super local. One of the things I'm trying to do with this company is have extremely good logistics. I want to be able to do my job, and the people who work for me, I want them to be able to do their job potentially anywhere. One of the things I've thought about was that when I get to the point where I'm scaled enough that I can really focus on it. Oh, wow, the mouse is too tall. Keep knocking it over. When the business is scaled larger, I don't want remodeling to be part of my work. And I say that not because it doesn't make me money, it makes lots of money, but because it is one more logistical complication. And I'll be totally honest. If you're training someone to take a set of plans and redraw it with changes, that's an entirely different skill set to sending them out into the field and understanding how to get an existing house, into the software that we already have and then make changes and then go through a design process. Like, it's totally different. So I'm trying to I will at some point keep remodels out of my work because that's just such a way more complicated task and it's logistically tying you to a location. Most people are not going to want to pay you, the designer, what it's worth for them to fly out somewhere and do a remodel design. Like maybe they would if they like really, really, really like the designer that much. They might. So, there could be money in it. However, from Hormozy, like the more you focus on something, the better you're going to be at that one thing. And I just don't think that I want the one thing to be that. I think I want the one thing to be, hey, you need plans. Let's get you some plans really fast. And new construction, because then I can just do it all from a computer. Internet research, you name it, right? So people are concerned with code. And if you are not local to an area, you are just going to be less familiar with the code in that area. All right. And this is here's one of the tricks that I have to overcome here. As I'm selling out of College Station, Texas to pretty much all of Texas. And Texas is a big state, as we know. And there's quite a significant difference in the way we construct, whether we're over in El Paso, or like over on the east side of Texas. Very, very different climates, geographies, like dirt infrastructure, just totally different. So for someone like me to be able to produce a useful set of architectural plans, I need to understand how we build in both areas. And so what that means, and like here's the reality, people, is that all that really means is that you probably call the local development services, and sometimes they have like sample plans and stuff. You can actually like request, some places have pre-approved plans, things like that. So you can actually get plans that are for the local area. You can call the people and be like, hey, like, what are some weird code things in the area? Just like start talking to people, get some research, right? And then, of course, in most cases, you can also just go online and like look up residential new construction permitting requirements. And they'll have like a checklist saying, like, when you submit, have this information. It's not rocket science, people. And so that's one of the edges that I have. That's like one of the selling points I have to make if I'm trying to sell somebody up in Dallas, that I can draw them a plan set. Because what they're going to be concerned about is if I give them a plan set, like worst case scenario, I'm a bad draftsman. They pay me, I give them the plan set. They go to try to get it permitted, and then there's a bunch of stuff missing, and so they get comments on it from the reviewers at the city, and then they can't get the permit because they need the comments fixed, and then they contact me because as the designer, as the draftsman, it's my job to make sure that the plan set is complete. That it like for what they're paying for, that there's not an issue with a lack of information on something that I drew that's causing them to not be able to get their permit. Not everybody thinks about it that way, but I happen to, because it's part of quality to me. And so when somebody does that and they have a comment, one of the service related things with a design firm is that if you get a comment, you fix it almost immediately, because now people are waiting on you again. And I don't like when people are waiting on me. That's why we're doing things rapidly here at Rapid Designs. So you get a comment back, you fix it, you send it right back, that kind of thing happens. Now, worst case scenario for the person that's like imagining this is that I take forever to respond, or I take forever to fix it. And like, if I was a designer who was local, I would be less likely to make that mistake in the first place and have the comment happen and slow them down. So that said, it needs to be made very clear that when someone like me starts drawing for someone in faraway land, wherever it is, I need to understand two things. One, what are the codes local to this area that are going to affect what I need to put on my papers? And two, what are the like legal differences and requirements for who is allowed to draw these plans? Some places require me to have a certification to do this, that, and the other. Places like Nevada require me to have a state certification. So I have to pass a test with the state saying, hey, like I'm competent, like I understand buildings and understand construction, right? I have to have those things in place before anyone's even going to consider my plans in like a city or a county or something like that. So those are the things I got to be aware of. And so as a builder, if I have a designer from who's like 2 states away, there's a huge risk I am adopting to like buy plans from someone like that. So got to overcome that. And I'll kind of get back to sort of why that's going to talk about strategy for a little bit there. But one of the other things I'm working on is, of the avatars that I want to build for, which is builders who do new construction, who know what they're doing, and who pretty much want plans that are super turnkey. Like, they don't need to be shown a bunch of elevations of cabinetry because the millwork guy is going to redraw it anyway. They don't need to see like a whole bunch of extra fluffy detail on like let's say the electrical plan, all this specifics about lighting and dimensions. Like, put enough information there for the electrician to put a bid on it that makes sense. But like, so much of the selection and so much of the work down the line in a custom home happens down the line, right? It doesn't need to happen in my plan set. And what I want to do is I want to do only enough that is exactly what the builder needs. That's the point. So those kinds of builders. And typically what's happening is the kinds of builders like that don't already have an estimator or a builder. Well, they probably do their own estimating. A estimator, builder, designer, drafter, whatever you call it. I'm a drafter, not a builder. If someone doesn't have a draftsman in-house, like in their own business as an employee, they're probably not super big. And so that's another thing I'm finding, is that I'm targeting people who are in a certain growth part of their business, where I need to basically capture their attention and get them to be like, oh, like, okay, as I scale, like I can scale with this other company. I don't need to bring design in-house because it's just like not necessary. So I'm targeting that. And typically those builders are also doing a lot of the estimating for their bidding themselves. They don't have a third party estimator. They don't have an estimator in-house. They're they're literally like trying to run the show, right? And so what the result of that is I want to sell the most valuable plans I could possibly sell to these builders because that's how you charge really high prices. And that's my target. So I need to figure out all of the ways I could possibly add value. And it has become clear to me over this past week, one of the ways you can add value doing what I do with the software that I have, that's lots of value added with minimal amount of work. That's what I want. I want lots of value, minimal amount of work, because that leaves the most room for the money, right? And so I can use the great software that I have, tech-enabled service, right? That's what we're after. And I can add lots of value to my plans by including a whole bunch of quantities on the building I am drawing. And that will allow me to save the builder time, obviously within like margins, and like everyone has to understand to be on the same page. Like, hey, I'm relying on this software. I'm kind of double checking this, and this, but like there's always questions, right? Yeah, I can do a lumber package. I can do a lumber takeoff for somebody and then be wrong because the framers used like a bunch of 2x4s to make turtles because they wanted a park bench to sit on with some turtles. Like there's so many things that can go off where things are wasted basically. So that said, like you never know exactly, but slight estimating quantities are going to start be in my plan sets because that is serving and becoming more valuable for the particular type of builder I want to sell to. So that's coming in. Another thing I figured out is I'm not totally sure how to use ChatGPT or AI or for whatever in like a ton of ways for my business quite yet, but I did figure out something recently, which was part of my sales process is I need to scrape data of builders with phone numbers off of the internet. And the way I had been doing that is in Texas, you go to the Texas Builders Association, and then you can look at the 26 local builders associations based on different counties and stuff in Texas. And then you go to those websites, and those websites have builder directories where I can find, hey, what's the builder? What's phone number? If they're a member. Now, there are builders, I'm sure, that are not listed there. So I'm missing out on potential work, and that's a problem I will solve later when I've gone through all of the builders associations, but I will talk about that at a different time. But for now, that's what I'm doing. And one of the one of the things that was taking forever when I do that is scraping the data. I got an Excel sheet and I got the website open on my screen and I'm typing out what I see and I'm reading and I'm just like copying data. Now that's time consuming and there's potential for me to copy something over incorrectly. And I was like, you know what, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I YouTubed like how to scrape phone numbers and stuff. And I just started learning a little bit about it. And I came across a guy who used ChatGPT to read an HTML document. So like you go to a website, you can download the HTML that is the website as like text. And so you basically copy, because ChatGPT is not allowed to read websites and like extract information for like privacy reasons or whatever. So you just download the website to the text and it's allowed to scan the text. It's all the same, but whatever. As far as I know, I'm not an expert. But anyway, I took ChatGPT, had like, hey, scan this list and then give me a comma separated value file for builder name and phone number. And like, you got to like give a little bit of help sometimes finding where in the code those things are stored. But for, I don't know, like 200 total builders out of the other things I was adding, I got like a whole bunch of work done by ChatGPT in like seconds. So that was really helpful. And then sub websites, they're not formatted such that I can use it. I can't use this method because like the phone numbers are stored on a separate page and like it just wouldn't work. I could write code to like basically dig through the website and do all that, but that's not time. That's not worth it. I might as well just like copy it with my eyeballs at that point. So, but that's a cool improvement is that I learned that like, oh, I could do this with ChatGPT if the website's formatted correctly. So that's a win. That's a win for us. All right. Now, here's the other topic I want to talk about here is the acquisition model. I was watching some Hormozy lately, and one of the things he mentioned was until you're hitting about $100,000 a month, you should not have more than one acquisition model. And the reason for that is to have effective acquisition models, it takes a whole bunch of time and input. And if, for example, I wanted to get the most leverage out of my cold calling acquisition channel, then I need to do a bunch of it. Because if I do a bunch of it, I'm going to get better. And then when I get better, I'll be able to get more out of it. And so it takes a long time and a lot of calls for that to happen. I'm maybe 600, 800 calls in, maybe 1,000 calls in, and like I'm starting to kind of figure it out. And the more I figure it out, the better the results will be. And so here's the dilemma is because my business is location based, and I remember I mentioned the code, like the local codes problem as a designer or a draftsman. People are going to be more likely to work with me if they know I'm in the same area as them. They're going to be less likely to work with me if I'm not in the same area as them. But there's only so many people, there's only so many avatars of this one kind of builder that I want to work with in my area. And so there's a few different things you could do. Well, I could expand the avatar and accept more different kinds of work, which makes me less efficient, which is like, okay, I could get more work doing that. But is that the highest leverage thing to do? And according to Hormozy, it would not be. I would be to focus on my avatar so I can serve them the best. So I am confronted with this dilemma, which is if I need to high leverage my cold calling thing, and like the question you should ask yourself is, why am I not doing 10x what I could be doing? Like if I want my company to make 10x more money, what do I need to do? And it's pretty simple. Like, okay, if you 10x the sales, great. If you 10x the price, okay, great. That would be one way to do it. You might lose a lot of customers and stuff, but like these are things you could do. And so if I was going to try to 10x what I'm doing, I would run out of leads in Texas. And so the reason for that is there's only so many builders associations. And I'm almost through compiling all of the lists and all the phone numbers. And it's probably only going to take me maybe 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, maybe to call all the rest of Texas. I'm going to try to call the rest of Texas in this coming week. We'll see what happens. It depends on how much work comes in and how much other stuff I'm doing. But that's one thing I'm going to deal with that. But like once I get to the end of all that, it's like, well, now these lists are complete. These lists are done. Now, do these lists change? Yes. I'm sure every year they update this with new people come, new people go, yada, yada, yada. And I could like, because of the software I have, I could cross-check this and like only include the new ones and get rid of the old ones. Like I could do that. But the next thing is going to be figuring out, okay, how many other builders are in Texas that I have not called because they are not part of these associations? And you can do that by getting referrals because you're doing a great job and you make people happy. And this builder recommends you to somebody else who maybe isn't on the association, but he builds houses. Great. Okay. That's one way to get those people. You could ask, right? So which is just like asking people for the referral, basically. I could start Googling like, hey, where are other places these builders are listed? I could literally Google by city. I could say, hey, builders in Temple, builders in Waco, builders in, yeah. And I could start getting all those other lists. And I'd probably want to basically like plug and play with ChatGPT to cross reference and make sure I'm not duplicating and make sure I'm not wasting my time. But like I'd have to find out where am I getting more of the people to call in order to 10x the calls, right? I need to have 10x the people in order to keep calling. So, and that's if I contain it in Texas. Now, the alternative is like there's going to be a point where I have saturated Texas. Not completely, but I'm totally out of ideas on how to get more builders and find more builders in Texas using the data scraping and the cold calls. Now, the question is, do you switch your acquisition model or do you change your avatar? Those are pretty much the two ways I could go, right? So if Texas is saturated with my phone call cold calling method, that means that I will either, if to do more, I'm going to have to go outside of Texas in order to keep my avatar the same, which could be okay. Or I could change my acquisition model to try to get more of the builders in Texas that I'm not reaching or not selling good enough somehow. And that would basically probably mean social media, or advertising. Like advertising could be a thing. Like those are pretty much the two other ways I would do it. So those are two totally different acquisition channels. And so I would start over, like let's say social media. I'm not starting from zero with social media, but I am not starting from very far. And so I would jump back into that and I would start producing a bunch more content and try to give value to those people that I'm targeting, the builders, and then grow the network that way and get them to want to use me from that. And then I would basically try to get a higher percentage of Texas. That could work. But then I'm like, is that the highest leverage move? Or by the time I'm through Texas, am I going to be so good at the phone calls that the only hill I must overcome to get outside of Texas is like, okay, maybe a state registration or something. And also, let's be real, there are tax consequences to like, now I'm selling out of state. I got to be aware of what's going on there. But I have to be registered or whatever, maybe in another state, or I have to basically be aware of those local codes. And if I get good enough, and let's be real, Texas is so big that if I can sell somebody in East Texas that I can figure out your codes, bro. Like I can draw you plans. It's not going to be a problem. And if I do get comments, send them to me. I will take care of them super quick. Like you'll be fine. If I can do that in East Texas and I can do that in El Paso, which is on the west side of Texas, for those that don't know, two very, very, very far away places, I can probably just push it farther. Because if I'm selling this, like I could sell in Nevada. I could sell in like some states I might want to avoid for different business reasons for now, but like I could just start pushing it out farther. And that might be a higher leverage move. So that's something for me to figure out when I get to that point. If you're coming along for the ride, then you'll figure out what I do for sure. I'm probably going to stick with the single system. But like here's the other thing. Remember, $100,000 a month. If I hit $100,000 a month before I've run out of people to call in Texas, then it makes sense to change the acquisition model and by adding another one. And the reason for that is the idea being, if you get to $100,000 a month, you are probably, I am probably not calling people at that point. I have trained someone to understand the value of my business and to sell for me. And therefore, you can keep one acquisition channel going while starting a new one. Because let's be real, it's the business owner who is the one hard charging and taking something in a new direction and figuring out all the kinks and doing that stuff. That's like the responsibility of the business owner. So I can't run 3 acquisition channels by myself and do all of the work that the business needs. There's not enough time for that. So that is the strategy. That's where we're at. And so I'm going to try to take out the rest of Texas today. We'll see. People are liking what's going on here. So yeah, we're in phase 1, which is, I'll call it Texas, cold calls and referrals, baby. So product update. I've got the kinks worked out with this 3D printer. I am able now people can send me a PDF of a plan set and I can pop it up into my Chief Architect software, get an STL out of it, send the STL to my 3D printer, get the house, print out the paper to scale, laminate. I can make this little model pretty darn quickly now. And that's working well. So that's becoming the lead magnet on the front end of the phone call so that I can, instead of trying to sell somebody on my service, I can just give them some value and get connected that way and just start with that. And then hopefully they're just sold on how I am and how I like to do work and the value I give and this cool little model, like all those things, like that's all part of sales. So that's where we're at. And of course, I'm working on updating the actual templates of my files and stuff to figure out how I can bring in the estimating part and use the software at its maximum capability every time so that it saves me time in getting quantities and stuff like that. So I got to figure that out. And last week's action steps, people. I did finish calling all the people in Houston. Houston was a very good city. Houston was a great city. There's probably just like Austin I did right before that. And Austin's pretty much just a bunch of snooty people, and architectural stamps are required for a lot of the work. And so just like I just got almost nothing out of that. But I did learn some things. So that it wasn't nothing. But Houston's good. Lots of people who use designers and draftsmen in Houston. And we did that. So I don't know what that means. I don't know why I wrote that note in there. Sorry. Q&A call. We did that. We had a good time. We hung out. Also, if you are part of this community, you must also understand that we are not just about drafting and getting smarter here. We're also about money and making sure that our money is right and that we're building wealth. We are not frivolously spending. And like, I do love The Wolf of Wall Street. It's a great movie. I 10 out of 10 recommend everybody watches that movie. Funny movie. Love the guy. I don't recommend punching your wife, but hey, like, gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. I'm just kidding. So, yeah, we had the Q&A call. And so one of the things we did as we were hanging on this call is we actually switched over and we started playing Cash Flow, which is an online game in this case. It was made by Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And also recommend reading that book if you're interested in improving yourself and learn how to make more money and retain your wealth. Make wealth moves, not just, make rich moves. So that was fun. We had a good time. If you want to have a good time, come join us because that's what we do. We also go every Friday. Got the Frame It Friday thing going on. If I just did a 2-story house this last Friday. And so if you want to wrap your head around like, hey, I have no idea what framing means and what framing looks like and all this stuff, then go check out the Frame It Fridays, because I literally will take an architectural set on this desk and I will show you how a structural engineer would think about a house as he is seeing it for the first time. So run with that. Check it out, Frame It Fridays. Those are 7:30 p.m. Central. Q&A calls are Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Central. If you want to remember all this stuff, join the school server in the link below. It's free. And that's actually a place you can contact me and ask me questions. I'm in the process. Like there's multiple people in there. There's like people who want to learn. There's people who want to teach, people who want to network, people who want to be connected. That's the whole point of it, is for just people to be involved. So got that taken care of. Last week, I also mailed out. So I had backlog. I just got this 3D printer and I've been drawing plans for a little bit. So I tried to print as many of all the plans I've ever drawn as I could, and then like give them out to all the builders and people that I've been working with to get a whole bunch of practice on the printer, of course, and to give value. But I got caught up on all that. I shipped them all out. Everybody's got what they need. People are liking them. It's a good thing. Got that all taken care of. And now we're just back to selling. We got to make the models, keeping up with the lead magnets. Of course, we got to do the work. You got to do the drawing as it happens. You got to, do the cash flowing part. And then, of course, we had our first IRL meetup on Friday. We had a great time. Mr. Green Observer can vouch for it. It was a great event. If you want to come out to the next one, then you should come out. There's no like entry fee or anything. It's just like come hang out and have a good time. And yeah, that's what we were up to. Let's see. IRL meetup. That was last week. While I'm at it, let's do a little chat here. Centurion 54X. You listened to Book Club on Friday, talked about front loading value when trying to get new clients, kind of like how you are offering free 3D printed designs. Yes, that is the idea. If what's happening is basically if you just give until they ask. Here's a perfect example, Centurion. You give until they ask, and like what's happening actively on the phone with these people is I keep doing this, and they're the next question they ask is, can we just pay you to make these things? And like that's a question I have to wrestle with right now because of like risk analysis and all this stuff. And like I might do it for a little bit, because at the same time it's also like building relationships and building network, and even if they're not the right avatar, like hey, it's money and it's work and it's an honest living and all that stuff. So yeah, I'll make it happen. We got a happy Sunday from Mr. Wyatt MG. Look at that great photo. Look at that in a suit, looking fly. Mr. Wyatt, we would love to have you looking fly when we're doing our fly stuff here in College Station. I'm sure it would be a great time to have you at one of these IRL meetups at some point. And who knows, at some point in the future, maybe we travel for these. Who knows? But like, yeah, I'm sure we'll make something happen because you're a man of action and construction and self-improvement and all those wonderful things that we're all after here. Centurion, we got a lot of got to do what you got to do. That is correct. We do have to do what we have to do because the alternative is that you probably die. There you go. So this week, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to call the rest of the Texas Builders Associations, get all those lists done. We'll see if I can do that. There's probably going to be, I haven't looked at some of the far west ones, but I'm assuming there's like 300, 400 left. So maybe it's a solid maybe. Yeah, obviously got to keep up with the work, models, plans, all that stuff. I'm going to, so I've got a few, because of all this stuff I've been doing in Houston, I've got a few projects in Houston that are now poking their heads up and stuff. So what I'm going to do, this is a microphone to this headset, but I'm actually using this one. That's why it's here. I need to stop playing with things with my hands. So Houston, I don't know a lot about I've done some stuff in Houston, but like I'm going to check their requirements. I'm going to check their checklists, their submittals, all these things. That's like, hey, if you're going to build something, these are the things we need, because you just like look ahead, want to make sure I'm doing the right thing and the best thing for my customers. So we're going to do that. Of course, we got the Q&A call on Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Central. We got the Frame It Fridays on Friday, 7:30 p.m. Central. And the next IRL meetup is going to be on September 28th. Repeat, that is on September 28th. That's when we're going to do the next one. For now, let's assume it's just going to be in College Station, because that's where I know the most stuff. And the one after that is going to be on October 26th. So if you're someone who likes to plan ahead, think of October 26th. That's going to be the next time. Now, College Station, believe it or not, is a college town. The main part of College Station is Texas A&M University. And there's lots of fun, lively things that happen in college towns. And especially when you get closer to Halloween, because people tend to value Halloween and get together, do lots of Bible studies and stuff like that. So that's what we do here in college towns. All right. So thank you guys for coming on. That's my update. That's what I got. It's good to have you on the show. Thank you for the support and for the learning and all these wonderful things. I hope this has been somewhat valuable. Hopefully you've learned some things. Maybe you can adapt to yourselves and things, think about yourselves, your own businesses, whatever it is that you're doing. I am just here to talk about what I'm learning, and hopefully you can learn something along the way. That said, as always, let's take it out with none other than the Larry Hahn, shortly followed by Green Observer and his magical music.
That's the code.